Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Alpha Male Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Heather Krause.
And I'm the other host, Gregg Krause. It's so nice to be back talking to you guys again about a new topic.
Yes. Well, it's going to be we're going to elaborate on a topic. We are going to kind of hound diet again because we do think it is so important. And especially with the weather getting warmer. I mean, Dad, I know you're getting bombarded with questions on, how to get that summer bod and lose fat.
I know just at the gym today training some of our clients, a lot of people came up and started asking what they could do to get ready
Yeah.
for the shorts and tank tops and everything.
I think probably the best advice is maybe don't go so hard on the sweets during the winter. Like, don't get too comfortable hiding behind, like, in all this, like, sweatsuits and sweatpants, whatever, because it does make it easier to get that summer bod, but and start as early as possible. But with that said, we are in March now, so with that, if somebody has waited this long, what would you say is like, what would you do to hurry up and try to lean out to look good for summer?
Well, I always go back to don't crash diet.
Yeah.
You don't want to shock the body because the body responds in negative ways
Correct.
if you do something too drastic. And the other thing is, which I've heard a zillion times, and I'm going to say it a zillion times, the only diet that'll work is the one you'll follow.
True.
And I don't care if it's low carbs, high carbs, paleo,
Yeah. Keto,
keto.
Atkins, Mediterranean. There's like so many. Well, we do care if you follow the cookie diet. That's a no-no.
Yeah. But all of them, you'll get some results if you follow. But I think the key thing to all of them is you take in less calories.
Yeah, because also, guys, don't forget, because a lot of people will try to crash diet for, from now until like Memorial Day to look good on Memorial Day. And then they like what they look like. But then it's like game on and it's alcohol, it's, everything for the summer. So if you crash diet for summer, but then don't really follow that great of a diet for summer, you're going to just blow up back like a balloon.
Well, and what also happens when you crash diet, that puts a stress on your body, which causes it to release cortisol.
Yes, which you don't want.
No, because once again, the scale lies to you. It might show you lost 5 pounds, but did you lose 5 pounds of muscle?
Yeah. Or
did you
water.
lose
Yeah.
water? Or did you? And here's a little known fact that people forget. Every gram of carbohydrate holds 3 to 4 grams of water.
True. Yes.
So if I go and eat 500 grams of carbs today and drink water or whatever, the scale's going to go up. And I know us guys will go, oh, hey, look, I gained 5 pounds of muscle today.
Yeah. And then girls will want to jump off a bridge. We have very different reactions to when we see an extra 5 pounds.
Right. And that's why, once again, you have to be careful and do things in moderation.
Yeah.
And I really believe one of the key things you have to do is, one, keep your protein up.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because protein doesn't hold a lot of water in your body.
No.
But it feeds your muscle, which, once again, muscle burns more calories.
Yeah, that's like the quickest way to get lean is to build more muscle. And you can't do that without protein.
Right. And by building muscle, we're not saying you got to bench press 500 pounds. You just have to do some kind of resistance training. That could be a simple thing as doing push-ups.
Because I think I've said this before. Like, some people have a gross misunderstanding of how long it takes to build muscle. And sometimes you get the response of like, well, I don't want to be a jacked bodybuilder. And it's like, buddy, well, you have a long way to get there. Like, you're looking at 10 years to even come close to that. So, like, you might as well start going to the gym. And I think sometimes people kind of use that as an easy excuse when a little bit of muscle goes a long way. And like, if your arm right now is all fat, and like, what's like a good size, like a decent size man arm, like inches around?
16 inches, 17 inches is a little above average for a guy's arm.
Okay. Well, so let's just say it's like all fat. If you're resistance train, you can keep the same size arm, but it's going to look a lot better. And it's going to look like even like a little bit bigger. It'll be like an optical illusion if you replace that with muscle. So you don't, just because you're lifting doesn't mean you got to get insanely big and walk around and you can't put your arms by your side.
Which way is the beach?
Yeah. So yeah, I think back to your point is protein is 1000% key. I think anytime you're going to lean out, and again, you don't want to restrict calories. Like I'm seeing more and more guys, unfortunately, think that that's kind of the way to go. I mean, in girls, that's what we're brainwashed into doing, which is definitely wrong. But I hear more and more guys like, oh yeah, I'm trying to lean out, so I'm trying to eat less, when really you can just change around your macro, like, how many carbohydrates you're eating, how much fat you're eating, and protein, and change that ratio. And you can lean out and the calories are still there, so your energy's still up.
Right. And you do have to eat a little bit less calories than you were eating.
Yes.
But once again, not a drastic thing. And by upping protein, your body burns more calories trying to digest protein than it does carbs or fat. And once again, your body does need some fat.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that helps your hormones. Be you a guy or a gal, you need some fat.
Yeah, that's what makes your hormones. So if you don't have any fat, and that also makes your brain work. So it's very, very important. We both are, I mean, minus somebody having some health condition where they can't actually process fat, we are not fans of low-fat diets whatsoever.
No, moderate fat.
Yeah.
But I would try to get, and I know there's controversy on this, but just from our own personal experience on ourselves, and also with working with many people over the years, at least a gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Yes.
But now, if you weigh 250 pounds and you want to try to get down to 210, then you should be shooting for at least 210 grams of protein.
Yeah.
Because this way we could still feed your muscle. So we could keep your muscle tissue and get you down near that body weight you want to get to.
Yes, because let's just say you start with the 2,000 calorie diet. If you drastically drop it to, let's say, 500 calories, you're like, March 1st, you're like, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm going to diet. So you drop it down to 1,500. Well, now your body will have, in like 2 weeks span of time, because your body is always adapting. We've never really adapted out of like caveman days. So your body always wants to survive. So it's going to say, oh, you are not around as much food right now, because it's still, like I said, things you're living in the woods, and doesn't understand that there's grocery stores now. So what happens is now your body kind of like powers down. So now its maintenance level is 1,500 calories. So you can't lose. You might get a good some weight loss out of the 1,500 for 2 weeks, but as soon as your body kind of like levels out at that point, now you got to drop it again. So now what are you going to drop it to? 1,000? So now you go through the same cycle where it's now, your body levels out at 1,000. So now what are you going to do? Are you going to be one of those guys eating like celery sticks? You got to think of that too when you start
right,
cutting.
And that's why we like to, when we're working with people or even ourselves, gradually drop your calories a little bit. And once again, not eat the same thing every day. because this way then your metabolism will not slow down.
Yeah, because you hear a lot, like, again, we're going to go back to like bodybuilding, is that you hear about these bodybuilders that have these crazy cheat meals. And you're like, how are you staying so lean with like a, why I see you on Instagram eating a burger and fries? The reality of that is because they might have had a couple low days where they're dropped. And again, this is an extreme thing, but you can still use this practically in your everyday life where they might have, lowered their calories and then they're upping it for a day. So now when their metabolism, like day 1 through 3, they're eating lower calories and their body's starting to go, we're getting a little, like we don't have a lot of food around.
Starvation mode.
Yeah. But then on the 4th day, you slam like a burger. And I'm not saying slam a burger, but if you increase your calories, because if you're not going to the extremes like a bodybuilder, you don't necessarily need as much of a kind of boost.
Yeah.
But some extra calories on that 4th day, your body goes, oh, we're not, like, now we are around food. We're cool. And it doesn't level itself out like it would have had you just been keeping the lower calorie thing going.
Right. And once again, this way, it's a gradual thing. Mm-hmm. And this way, you're not going to go from one extreme to the other. You got to keep control of your body. Mm-hmm. So you make it do what you want it to do. And the other thing besides cutting calories is increase movement.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I wanted to say is, so when, let's just say, like you always say, like you want to maximize your whatever card you're playing. And you always want to have cards in your pocket to play when you're trying to lean out. Because if you play them all, you're kind of screwed and you have nothing to add, besides extreme measures. So like, if you're going to cut, let's just say you're not doing any working out at all and you start with a 2,000 calorie diet, just for simplicity's sake. And so, you might lower that 200 calories. Okay, well, ride that out. But then you can also increase, like you start walking. But I would wait like 2 weeks before, when you cut your calories, and then you can start adding in walking. So now you went from a 200 calorie deficit, and let's just say you burn 300 calories on a walk. Now you're in like a 500 calorie deficit because you added that 300, that negative out that you didn't have before. So there's so many different ways to like increase that amount of calorie deficit that you have, that not necessarily by taking away food, because remember, food is nourishment and it's like a fine balance between, because you have to have enough nutrients to, grow your hair, keep your heart working good, your skin looking good, all this stuff, your energy levels. And if you cut too much, something's got to give. You're going to be missing something.
Right. And a lot of times your body burns muscle. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't have a lot of muscle on your body, it'll still go after that. Mm-hmm. Because it'll say you don't need it because you don't use it at all.
That's very true. And they say that like your body gets a lot more out of fat. So, and it takes longer for fat to be metabolized, like for your body to go through the process. So when it thinks it's in starvation mode, if you think about it, and muscle's heavy, it takes more energy. That's why we say the best way to burn fat is to keep all this muscle on. Your body knows that. So if you're starving it and it needs to burn something for energy, and again, it kicks into starvation mode, it wants to unload the biggest like dragger downer that it has is the muscle. So it's going to burn through that and keep your fat, because if shit hits the fan and you're starving, it wants to keep its best energy source on you, which is fat.
Right. And once again, your body, if you use your muscle, will have a reason to keep it. Mm-hmm. Because this is why with older people, as people get older, and I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 80, 90, whatever, if you do not use that muscle, it atrophies. And this is what ends up happening to people, where they get the saggy skin and everything else. Mm-hmm. But if you continue to do something or start to do something, which we've mentioned before, my mother-in-law, Heather's grandma, my wife's mom, at 99, she still uses dumbbells and she's still walking around with a walker where she does over 1,000 some steps. And it's once again because she started to use all that again, which, once again, most of you people are a lot younger than that.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to start. And I know the bit. You don't understand. I don't have time. But you know, as I'm sitting here, Heather and I talking, you guys, I could be sitting here doing steps as I'm watching TV or playing a game or talking on this podcast. There's always a way to move so that you burn more calories.
Absolutely. And I heard a quote, and I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm probably going to butcher it. It was how, like the old quote of, a healthy person has like 1,000 problems, but an unhealthy person only has one problem, meaning that they want to get their health back. And they said, you have to put your body first, because if you don't, none of that matters. So like if you're so concentrated on, that side hustle or, this or whatever it is, it's all not going to matter if your body is in a terrible position. So you have to take care of that first to make all that other shit that you're putting ahead of it matter in the first place, which is so true, because that company that you want to start isn't going to matter if like you're in bed with like a disease. You know what I mean? So, or you have heart issues, like none of that is going to matter.
Your wife, your husband, your kids might be enjoying it, but you're laying in bed because you're bedridden because of whatever diseases you have from not taking care of yourself and not eating properly.
And well, really quick too, I also read recently that they found that a person that is a normal weight but does not exercise will not live as long as somebody who is obese and that exercises. So exercising is so important.
Because you got to keep that heart muscle moving. And once again, we're not saying to run a marathon or anything else.
No.
I haven't run in many years, but I walk every day. My wife, Michelle, and I, every day we get out and we walk. And even after we're done walking in the morning, we will still walk throughout the day.
And I mean, they say sitting is the new smoking. So, and with so many people having desk jobs, I just think it's so important. And I mean, as a country, our health is in the shitter. So I think it's time for everybody to realize that like all of our habits over all these years, they're not going in a good direction. They're not helping us. And we definitely need to do something to turn it around, because we're like at the bottom of the list for health when it comes to countries. We're not doing good at all. And I just think our lifestyles, I think so much stuff, I mean, our food, lack of diet education, lack of putting an importance in physical fitness, all of it just kind of adds to it.
And a lot of misinformation.
Yes.
Where people always want to do the extremes of whatever it is, whether it's an extreme diet, extreme exercise program, going out trying to run 20 miles. And I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but with the weather warming up, I've seen now over the last 2 weeks, 5 or 6 people that are pretty obese going out and jogging. Now, to me, hey, good job trying to get out there to do something. But that's 10 times your body weight coming down on your foot, on your knee, on your hip. And I think if you just went out and walked, and even power walked a little bit, that would be so much better on your joints, and it's something you can continue to do.
Because that's the problem is, and like I get it, like they're very like, people get really excited when it's warm weather. They want to get in shape. They get really motivated, which is great. But you got to think long term. And if they bust a knee, like twist a knee, like 3 days into jogging, you're not going to do that anymore. And
you're not even going to be able to walk because it's going to be swollen or torn meniscus or whatever, your hip.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, when Michelle and I were in Florida, we love going to the beach. We sit there and you could watch the people walk by and you go, that person has a bad hip. That person has lower back issues. That person, their shoulders are rolled forward. Everybody's bad postures come out when they're just wearing a bathing suit and walking on the sand. And all that stuff is very correctable if you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take care of yourself as you get older, all that money you made isn't going to do you much good. Because you're going to be paying somebody like Heather and I to help train you, set up a diet. Not that we mind,
Yeah.
but we'd rather have you so you are in shape, but we could get you in better shape, or somebody else could help do that for you and you are enjoying life.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, like everybody is kind of been brainwashed to think that you have to be miserable. Like in order to be in shape or even a healthy, that means like you got to be miserable. You got to suffer. You got to do all this stuff you don't want to do. And really that's not the case. And I'm not sure where that kind of got, you know, that was like into the mainstream, but you just have to understand how your body works. And really, guys, it's not that difficult. And I really wish that they would teach this in school and put a priority on it. But I mean, we are where we are. It is what it is. But I just think that if you kind of get rid of that thought process, that idea, and really just understand eating healthy is really not that hard. It tastes great. It's not tasteless food that you got to choke down. I mean, you can cook stuff with, but all it really is taking preservatives and crap out of your food. Like you can still eat fat. Like I ate ground sirloin today with a bunch of different spices that it's fantastic. Drizzled some duck fat. It sounds kind of gross, but it was actually very good. Some roasted asparagus and some roasted butternut squash. That I did not have to choke any of it down. So
Yeah, and once again, eating good doesn't have to taste bad.
no.
I don't eat anything I don't like the taste of.
Yeah, and you guys shouldn't either. And all it is making a healthier version of stuff that you like.
And I know a lot of you are addicted to candy, Fritos, Fruit Loops, whatever it is. Just slowly wean yourself off of that stuff. But one thing I want to mention too before we get too far off of what we were talking about, and that is make sure you get enough water
Yes.
throughout the day. That helps speed up your metabolism, and it'll also help clean you out as you go along. Because too many times you end up drinking diet this, unsweetened this, and everything else.
Yeah.
And remember, a lot of those products fool the brain into thinking that you're eating something sugary, so it releases insulin in your body. And once again, insulin could be your friend or it could be your enemy. If your body's always getting that signal to release insulin and your muscle cells are filled up already, then it pushes it into your fat cells. And this is where you end up having some problems there. And once again, if you're drinking water, it kind of fills up your stomach a little bit so you feel fuller, even though you haven't eaten as much.
Yeah, and sometimes when you think you're hungry, you're actually thirsty too. So that takes care of that. And like you mentioned with making sure you drink water as opposed to like pop or, something that has like chemicals in it. Cause you guys really do have to think about chemicals too. I think chemicals are just as important as like calories are at this point because one, we're bombarded with them. It wasn't that big of a deal back in like the 80s, 70s, 80s when there wasn't that many. So our bodies could easily process them. Now,
Yeah, well, I laugh because I grew up on whole milk, on butter, and all those other good things. And it's funny when they came out trying to say all that stuff's bad, and luckily they're reversing that.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for another whole topic. But I do want to get back into a little bit of.
Well, I do want to just point,
go
yeah,
ahead.
with the chemicals. So since we're talking about kind of, leaning out, chemicals play a role in that because everything has to go through your liver, which includes metabolized fat. So if you're bombarding your system with chemicals, you're just basically causing a traffic jam for your weight loss too, because your body's got to process all those extra chemicals out as well. So the more you can kind of switch to
Which goes through your liver,
which goes through
you
your
want out.
yeah. So the more you can kind of cut things out like that, and even how you said, wean yourself off of like the Skittles. Find something that it might still have like the sugar content in there, but it starts cutting out like all the red dyes and all that, and slow because you'll also find that those versions that don't have all that crap in them are a lot less addictive, and you're going to start to want it less. So if you really can't, get rid or like the chips, you can't stop eating Lay's chips. Switch to one of those things that are like kettle, fried or whatever it is, and that don't have all those chemicals that Lay's chips do because those are made specifically to make you addicted. Start finding a better brand.
Yeah, just like a drug addict.
Absolutely.
You get addicted to them.
And like, I mean, if you watch that show, My 600-Pound Life, those people, unbelievable. I had, you know what, though, Dad, I know this is off topic, but the best quote from this doctor I meant to show you. So they always have this doctor that he's like the nutrition guy that they come to. And
Right.
they always have to lose like, let's say he always makes them lose like 100 pounds before he'll do the gastric bypass surgery. I think it's more so to make sure that they're actually serious. And the one chick is like, no, I don't eat that much. And he goes, you ate all the food 4 years in advance. I thought it was so funny. I was dying. This guy has like no chill. Like he just says whatever. And he's like this little guy, very meek, mild. And he's just like, you ate all that in advance. What are you talking about? You don't eat. And like, they're always like, I'm a picky eater. He goes, no, you're not. Look at you. It's so funny. So funny.
And once again, I know we have said this previously, but you have to plan out and don't ever go to the grocery store hungry.
Yeah. No.
One of the little tricks I like to do is before I go, I drink a glass and a half of water.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because then your gut feels full. Might have to stop the powder of your nose in the grocery store, but that's okay because you're not going up and down those aisles where the food jumps in your cart. Not that you would reach for Fritos or Lay's potato chips or whatever this way. And once again, eat something also before you go.
Yeah. And if you'll ever notice, most of the crap in the grocery store is found in the inside aisles. If you just go around the perimeter of the grocery store, you're going to do pretty well diet-wise. It's very hard to, like, that's the thing. If you're just starting out trying to, like, eat clean, just start by doing that. You don't have to, like, nail this diet. It's not an all or nothing thing when it comes to your health and your diet. It is something that you should actually constantly be working on from now until you die, because you're going to constantly adapt and your body changes too. So like you should not be just, so many people concentrate on the short term. Like I want to lean out just, for summer. Why not do it in a way where you're going to lean out for your life? Like nobody ever thinks like, why don't I do this like a different way? Instead, it goes back to your first point, like don't crash diet.
Well, and like I always tell people, pretend you're in a competition with the person in the mirror. Mm-hmm. If you can make yourself better than that person you see in the mirror every day, you're headed in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And by the way, too, we're not telling you never eat anything unhealthy again.
Oh, no.
Like, for instance, I'm just giving you an example of myself and clients that we've worked with. Even when I was in my competition days, my competitive days, depending on how far out we were, but even to this day, Sunday when I do legs, it's the day I'll have one meal and I'll throw something that's maybe not as healthy for me. But what I've noticed, by bite number 1 or 2 of that thing, whether it's ice cream or a hamburger and french fries, I eat it and it's kind of like, yeah, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. And I'm cool to get away from that for another whole week or 2 weeks, whatever it is. But my whole point of the story is don't say I'm never going to have
No,
that
because
again.
that will make you want it so much more.
Crave it, yeah.
And it is, if you just can't, like, if you cannot get, rid of some habit, let's just say it's ice cream, and you have this, you eat ice cream every day, and you just want to get it done with. I would recommend you, and this sounds so weird and so simple, but it does work. If you bought a thing of ice cream, because so many people, what they'll do is like they buy the ice cream and then they're like, I'm just going to eat it for today and nothing. And then they overeat the ice cream and buy the ice cream and say, I'm going to allow myself to have this whenever I want. Like if I'm craving it, I'm buying it, but I'm starting my diet. That weird like release of the power of the ice cream on you is weirdly like freeing, and you will all of a sudden like it's like you broke the chain that is like chaining you to this ice cream, because you're allowing yourself, and it's almost like, okay, this isn't this like it's no longer like bad and good, and but now I can just like you just treat it differently in your head, and you look at it different, as opposed to this thing you got to cram in. And it
Or hide. I used to laugh. One of the bodybuilders, I'll leave him nameless because he's from the Cleveland area. His brother used to tell me he used to hide Oreos in the couch and eat them when nobody was looking.
Oh, really?
And he could never understand why, he couldn't lose all his weight.
Yeah.
But you're not fooling anybody but yourself. But that's what I like about your idea. Have it, own it, but just do a little bit of it.
Yeah, and just say like it's okay if I eat this. Like this, when I diet, this isn't a gone forever and I'm breaking up with you and never seeing you again, because that it's just like an ex that you can't break. Like, if you say I'm never gonna see her again, it almost makes you want them more. Maybe not all exes.
I wouldn't know. Mom and I have been together so long, I wouldn't even know what that's like.
Yeah. Well, be lucky.
No complaints.
Yeah, the dating like world is brutal nowadays.
I could only imagine. From teaching high school for 35 years, I've seen a lot of relationships come and go.
Yeah, I bet.
But back to what we were talking about. With the stress we brought up, you have to make sure you control the best you can, all of that. And you don't want to go out and run 20 miles.
Yeah.
Because that puts a stress on your body, which, once again, causes it to retain water and gain weight and everything else. So what we want to do is everything in moderation.
Yeah. Looking at this as like a long-term thing. You would never like...
It's a lifetime commitment.
Yeah. Like something that you want, like if you wanted to start a career, like as a lawyer, you're not going to jump in and just, read everything all at one time and think that you're going to do that. You're going to plan out your life with it and think like, okay, we're going to do this in steps. I'm going to get my degree. Then I'm going to join a firm. And then I'm going to do the same thing with your diet and your workouts. You have to think of this long term and how it's going to like affect and like fit into your life, because that's what I think people don't do enough, is they don't think about how is this going to fit in long term, because anybody can do some extreme thing for 2 weeks. But the problem is like then life happens and then everything's all, thrown out the window. They don't know what to do. You're not building a habit. You're just trying to push through and force something, and it never works out long term.
And that's why do things you can continue to do.
That you like.
And that's why I know with us getting up in the morning and walking, Now, back when I was working full time, we still did that. I had an exercise bike where we'd walk around the neighborhood, and yeah, we had to get up a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, you have to figure out what you value more. And if you have to give up 15, 20 minutes of sleeping, but that means you go to bed a little bit earlier at night,
Mm-hmm.
you're helping your body out that way also.
Mm-hmm. Or like, let's just say you have kids and you spend the mornings with them, and that's not an option. Well, then, but your nighttime, there's a TV show on, and that's what you watch. Well, why don't you sacrifice some of that TV time and go for a walk with your family? So you're not sacrificing your family.
Right. Or like we always say and tell people, get up during the commercials
Yeah.
with your kids and start doing jumping jacks,
Mm-hmm.
push-ups, whatever.
Yeah.
And you could kill two birds with one stone. But once again, you have to plan what you're going to do.
Yeah, and really think about and be honest with yourself on how it fits into your life. And I would, especially with starting something, I would try to do something more on the easy side, because then again, you're going to set yourself up for success, not failure. And once you get that down, it's easier. Like, let's just say walking, like your goal might be, I want to do HIIT workouts 4 days a week. Cool. But why don't you start just like walking around your development 2 days a week? Now you got that down. Now you're going to add 2 more days. And that's really not that hard. And then it's even less hard to switch that walk to do a HIIT workout. Instead of going like full boat from nothing to 4 HIIT workouts, one, that's exhausting. Your body needs to like kind of work up to that. And so you're more likely to stick and actually hit your goal than it like if you kind of do it in steps as opposed to going full boat. Because too, like if people don't realize how hard it is, you work all day, you're tired, and then you're going to go do this way more than you've done, like since you're not doing anything. That's tough to do week after week, as opposed to doing it's not as difficult to get yourself to go for just like a walk.
Right. And you don't have to do it to be successful.
No. Mm-mm.
The one thing that has affected me with my throat now, I can't run or anything else anymore because I can't breathe to do that. But once again, I have found ways by walking, by doing the exercise bike, but doing it all under control so that it's a little bit easier on me being able to breathe.
Yeah, I just think that if you really take, a little bit of time and really think about your lifestyle, you can make anything fit. Just like you said with you. Well, do you have anything else on this, or you want to kind of wrap it up for today?
Let's wrap it, because there's a lot more that we need to talk
we don't want
about.
like a 5-hour.
Right, but once again, we're not trying to make you an advanced super athlete. We're just trying to get you moving again. We will tell you more things, people that want to take it a little bit farther, like with the HIIT workouts and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But to start with, you don't have to do that. If you gave us 15, 20 minutes every day,
Yeah.
that's a start in just cleaning up your diet a little bit. You'd be amazed at how those pants and those shorts will fit you a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, I guess we'll say our goodbyes. And also, we do want to say, if you guys have any questions, we do have our email up. It's info@thealphamalepodcast.com. Just go ahead and send any questions you want us to answer on here. Please put questions in the subject when you email us. And also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate it, guys.
Yes, and appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. And once again, we're trying to keep it basic and then work up from there. So this will help everybody out.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you later, guys.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Bye.